Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Drive Ohio Career Connections webinar. Today, I'm joined by Jamie Davis from the Ohio UAS Center and Adrian Odell from ARO Aerial, and we're going to talk about drone pilot careers. So without further ado, let's get into it. To get us started, Adrian, I'll just ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your role, the company that you work for, and maybe how you got into this field.
Adrian Odell. I'm the owner and remote pilot of Aero Incorporated, which I actually started during the pandemic as a result of change in events, circumstances. I took kind of the passion that I had as a hobby flyer to get commercially licensed and then start working in. At that time, I started off in the construction space and roof inspection space. Those are the two things that kind of got me up and going in this business. But as I said, I own the business, run the business day in and day out as an army of one. Yeah, that's me. Like I said, I started more so as a result of shift and change and things that were taking place during the pandemic. Took that passion for flying and marketing and pulled that together into being able to have a drone business.
Outstanding. Well, we're glad you're here and can't wait to hear more from you about all that. Jamie, same question. What's your role, and tell us a little bit about how you ended up doing what you're doing.
So I work at the Ohio UAS Center. I started as flying a drone when I was doing archaeology. I was an archaeologist for 10 years. I started flying a drone in 2014, 2015 specifically to create 3D models of historic buildings, prehistoric earthworks, all the cool stuff. I got to travel a good bit to do that, but I ended up at the UAS Center, mainly time with family was the big reason, I guess. My role now is I do a lot of remote sensing, a lot of the specialty sensors, magnetometry and GPR, and we have what's called an echo sounder to get readings of water depths. So that's mainly my role at this point.
Awesome. Well, Adrian, a little more about you. Tell us what a day in the life looks like for a drone pilot, and maybe while you're doing that, what do you enjoy most about the work that you do?
Planning is everything for me. So a lot of things when it comes to sourcing a lead and then being able to facilitate the request. I do a lot of advanced planning for that. So mapping missions specifically has to do a lot with finding the aerial location, making sure that there aren't any flight restrictions in the area before you show up, plotting out a course using software to be able to make the maps that I'm going to shoot, planning for flight time, how much equipment I need to bring with me, how many batteries I need to bring with me. It's all that planning so that you pretty much have everything that you need before you show up on site, and being able to take care of a project takes place before you even leave the house, before you even leave the ground. So that's what I start with on most days. Then after you shoot something, you usually check in the field to make sure it works. So I usually carry my laptop with me, some type of storage device, some type of device to read the storage, but to make sure you don't want to get all the way back home, especially when you drive somewhere and realize that you missed something part of the shot list. So it's good to check that stuff in the field. So I have my pre-planning, drive planning, on-site. Then there's kind of the closeout before you leave a site, making sure you have everything, either upload on the spot or have things prepared to upload when I get home. So it's more than just flying the drone. It's making sure that you do things safely, orderly, and by arrangement, and making sure that you're obeying FAA rules if there are any restrictions that apply to the airspace that you go to. The aspect of it that I think I enjoy the most is when it comes to creative projects like video work that I do outside of that, being able to plan that out and just be able to see something come to fruition. The ends justify the means, so to speak, once you get done with something like that. I like seeing the end result of the work that is done.
Super. Thank you. Jamie's question, what's a day in the life look like for you, and what are some parts that you enjoy the most?
I think my role is different than most drone pilots out there. So I view the drone as a vehicle to collect data. It's my biggest pet peeve. I go to the national drone conferences. Most drone pilots don't know how to work with the data they collect, and they don't always collect it correctly. So my deal is to correct the data correctly for the sensor that I'm using, if it's a magnetometer or a GPR or whatever. And then after I go into the field, collect the data. And then most of my time is processing that data, viewing the data, interpreting the data, because most of the people I ended up giving the data to really don't understand the data either. So then I have to kind of help them interpret what they can do with the data. So at ODOT, there's a lot of different use cases, usually engineers or surveyors or hydrologists need something. And the idea is, can a drone do it? And the answer is usually yes, but then we have to figure out how the results can fit into their daily workflow.
What are some of the most exciting or interesting ways you're working with drones? I mean, I heard you mention like a magnetometer and other things like that. I mean, what are some cool examples that you've seen with your work at the UAS Center in Ohio?
So I did a lot of magnetometers. So we started using the magnetometer for ODNR to find the orphan wells, all the abandoned wells in Ohio. But I've been recently so when we do the wells, I fly the drone at 100 to 150 feet. Recently I've been using the magnetometer at 1 meter above the ground to find really small, subtle things. And then we have to marry the data with super accurate GPSs so we can locate the really subtle magnetometer anomalies that we find. It's pretty cool.
That's great. So Adrian, similar question, what are some interesting ways you're using drones and technology? I know you've joined me for a lot of school visits, which we really appreciate. And I know sometimes you talked with the students about some of that. What kind of cool tech gets you excited about the work you're doing?
I think, since we're talking about the STEM programs and things, I think that's something that's really exciting, just to give students the opportunity at an early age to get exposed to the technology. And by the time, they're adults, the technology is going to advance so far, but a lot of that advancement is going to be because of inspiring minds like theirs. So I think it's nice to just, even at the basic level, show them the functionality of robotics and how that works for them, to give them something to look forward to, because you don't know, like something that, pokes into their mind there 10, 15 years from now might be the cutting edge of technology because of something that we did by exposing them to that educational opportunity. So that even though I don't use a lot of the big gear or things like that, the educational opportunities for the young minds, I think is very exciting to be a part of. So happy to do that. As far as day in and day out for usage in the field, working with RTK more for accurate mapping. One of the things that I've been doing a little bit more as of late is trying to, for lack of a better term, improve the survey grade quality of what we do, using ground control points, using ground rovers, we have an in-lead reach system that we're using to try to get as accurate as we can when it comes to measuring out boundaries, comes to creating accurate maps. It's just the accuracy of data is important. And so I'm learning more, as Jamie mentioned earlier, about what data is actually needed to produce these things, and just trying to not just be another guy with a drone, but learn what the capabilities are of that drone and how we can better put it to use. As I said, there's many applications that it can be applied to. You just have to know what to do with the data that you're receiving. So that's exciting, just kind of exploring and figuring out some of those next steps in the unknown. It's been very rewarding.
That's great. Now, what I'm hearing from both of you is it's like you say, it's more than just flying the drones, having a plan. It's thinking about the data. That gets me thinking a little bit about artificial intelligence and just software more generally. You've both talked about it a little bit, but how does software factor into this? And are you seeing any use of artificial intelligence yet, or is that on the horizon for the way that we're especially with interpreting the data, maybe afterwards?
It's at the beginning. So when I fly a drone, most of my flying, the drone is flying itself. It just hit go. It does its thing. It comes back. I usually take control of it and land it. but I'm not. It's mostly a flying robot doing thinking for itself, which you have to take into account. It's not going to decide that, hey, there's a tree in the way, maybe I should not hit the tree. It'll go ahead and hit the tree. So you have to think about those things beforehand. The AI part it's interesting. It's very early for ODOT type stuff. Crack detection is one that a lot of people are trying to implement with AI. Take videos or photos of a bridge or some kind of concrete structure and have machine learning find the cracks for you. Because if you try to do that with your human eyes, you'll go cross-eyed and eventually can't see. And then the other part is traffic monitoring, traffic counting, I guess. And then I got asked just last week, is it possible to measure and take dimensions off of like semis that enter Ohio? And my first thought was that sounds like a job for AI. So I think we're going to investigate that.
Very cool. Adrian, anything you wanted to add on that software AI topic?
Yeah, software. Software is what gets most of the work that we need done when it comes to either flight planning or data processing. Everything for me is done by some type of software, either cloud-based or natively on my PC. When it comes to AI implementation, I work with Skydio, and Skydio has a active 3D scan technology, which is AI integrated, and it is an automated flight process, but it is a little bit more intuitive and aware of its surroundings. So in a scenario like that, if it's scanning a building or it's scanning an object of some sort, it will look for the obstacles that are around it, fly around it, continue its path. So it's using AI to create 3D meshes and then coming up with the optimal flight time to put together the 3D rendering. So I've seen that in action. I have 2 Skydio drones that I run in tandem sometimes with automated flight missions that's kind of doing their own things. But that's how I've seen AI integrate into the programming aspect of it. And much like Jamie said, I've seen more when it comes to stand counts and looking at measurements of things, utilizing AI to do what the naked eye would just take a long time to do. So I think, especially Skydio, and they've made changes here recently to go more into the commercial aspect of things, but it creates a drone that's at a much higher price point than to just, pick up and experiment with when it comes to AI. But I believe 10 years from now, AI integration is going to be so integrated, especially when we have more push of that with OpenAI and other platforms like that that are integrating that. I think the future is definitely some kind of AI generated.
That's super interesting. Yeah, and we'll come back to some of this in a minute when we get into maybe what students should start thinking about with training. But before we go there, let's stay on technology for just a little longer and ask everybody's favorite question. When am I going to get a pizza delivered by drone? What's going on with drone delivery? I know that's not your job, but just, you're closer to this technology than I am. What do you each think about this? What have you seen and where do you think we're headed with drone deliveries?
It's probably not as close as most people would think. It'd be what I would say.
That's fair. I mean, there's so many factors, and I believe me, I get that question a lot, and I take a similarly cautious tone because, like you say, in Centerville, Ohio, Kroger ran a 1-year pilot, and then it wasn't that the technology didn't work; it's just they need to then integrate it into their wider business to scale it. So the scale up, my opinion here is sometimes the challenge is technology is just one of many factors. So.
It's not, yeah. So it's not just the drone manufacturers. It's also the FAA has a big part in allowing the manufacturers to do this. Some of the drones can already do it, but they're just not. The FAA is just not there yet to let them do it.
Sure, and like you said, with advanced air mobility, with the work the Ohio UAS Center is doing with systems like SkyVision for air traffic management, and that it's one thing to do, one or a few, but the more you get, the more traffic you get. So gotta be ready
that's the
for
biggest thing that I think from my standpoint is the safety of being able to do it. Again, the technology is capable, and I don't think it's a capability issue. I don't think where it is currently it's scalable. I don't necessarily think that it's feasible either, because it's like, hey, I do my pizza order. Well, how much does it cost to actually have a drone pilot operate, deliver the pizza? Does it get there any faster than a car doing it? At the end of the day, those are the things that I think are going into the decisions about making it large scale. I think we'll see a lot of pilot programs. I think we'll see a lot of people reach out and utilize the technology in that way. But again, to the same point is if you have too many people in the air safety is an issue. For more than just, flying the drones. Like what do general public feel about drone going this way, drone going that way? What stops you from shooting a drone down and getting that pizza? So I just think the long-term aspect of it, there are a lot of things that still have to be sorted out. But it'd be interesting to see how that gets played out over time.
For sure. Yeah, I know a lot of our discussions around the state tend to center on healthcare too. It's fun to think about a Chipotle burrito or a pizza being delivered, but prescription medicine, but especially critical healthcare supplies, we're seeing a lot of that. So, it'll be interesting to watch over the next few years for sure. So let's talk about jobs for our audience that's thinking about maybe I want to get into this field. So, what are some examples of career pathways and how do you get started? What any suggestions for how to get into this field?
For me, I break them down into two categories. You have the data side of things and you have the creative side of things. The data side of things, there's mapping applications that can be applied across all types of industries: construction, oil, agriculture. There are mapping applications for all of those. So it's just having a specialized drone that maps for that particular industry with the appropriate software to process it. Someone like Jamie who knows what to do with that data. That's one side of it. I'll say that is more intensive on the understanding of data, the understanding of data processing. There's that avenue. And I would say even in that standpoint, pick a lane. If you want to look at agriculture, really learn agriculture. You want to learn construction and dealing with measurements on a construction site, learn that piece, because I think there are unique applications. Even though it's the same type of technology, same type of processing, what you need for that data side is different for each industry that you go in. Then on the creative side, which is mostly video and video marketing, everybody knows the video is the future. So for me, learning how to utilize drones to be able to create marketing videos, to create, that vision or that view that people can't see from the ground. That's the other side to me. Now that is harder in some respects because you have to know how to capture, how to edit it, know how to do those things. So it's deciding which direction you really want to go into. If you have a creative avenue you want to go on or a data-based avenue that you want to go in, not that you can't do both. It's just really define a craft as you go through it. So, and by the time, like I say, 5-10 years from now, that's going to change. But those are the two pathways that I've seen.
It's really fascinating. No, I can appreciate both sides of that. That's a great way to frame it. Jamie, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would personally, I would think of the drone as not the end to itself, just another tool in the toolbox. If you're an engineer or a surveyor or a hydrologist or agriculturist or whatever you might have an enjoyment for doing, think of how the drone can fit into your work, make it safer, faster, save money. That's how I would look at it.
So, speaking of skills, I mean, what are some of the most important skills that you think someone needs to have to succeed in a field like this? I mean, Adrian, earlier you were talking about planning, right? I mean, is that the big thing? Are there other skills that come to mind?
I think safety first is a big thing. It's just one of the biggest things that happens. I'll say with guys in general, we have toys. It's a big fun thing to fly around, but it's more than that. And there are safety risks that are associated with it. And just respect the piece of equipment that you have and for what it is. So that's being aware of your surroundings, depth perception, focus, being able to focus on a project. As Jamie was mentioning before, when you're on mapping projects, you can plan something. You could plan something be at 100 feet or 150 feet, making sure that there aren't any obstacles before you go into that. It's very important to check your surroundings, do those things. And I think sometimes the macho nature of us, we tend to make shortcuts that are unnecessary. So it's just respect the craft.
Yeah, great advice. Jamie, anything you'd want to add on important skills for success here?
Yeah, just I get back to the understanding, at least have a fundamental understanding, a basic understanding of how the data you're collecting is going to be used. Generally, that involves some kind of spatial understanding, not just where you're flying, but spatially how the data you're collecting is incorporated into a larger data set. Is usually, I mean, it's almost never that the data from a drone itself is the final product. It's incorporated into a larger data set and provides more information for that project.
Sure. And just maybe a quick follow-up question, on skills, how does creativity and collaboration and teamwork fit into all this? Do you find that as part of your daily work?
For me, yes. So when I first got to the U.S. Center, I had no idea how surveyors or other people at ODOT used, the software they used, how they used data, what they were used to using. So I would go out and do my thing, give them the data, and they'd be like, "Oh, what the heck am I supposed to do with this?" So then it was like, okay, maybe I should sit down with these guys and figure out how they're using the data on their end, and then I can tailor how I collect the data, process, and then hand it over to them. Because it's if they can't use it, it's pointless.
Sure.
And I'll piggyback on that. The same case is that's what I was mentioning before for different industries, agricultural, the data that you want to collect for that, you can collect it in a similar way, but in that particular case, using multispectral, understanding how multispectral works, what are your different data points, and then again, how is that going to be used? Because you can map a property and you fly it at 350 feet and get a set of data, or you can fly that at 150 feet and get more accurate data. And it's understanding what do you need in order to make that happen. Understanding the mechanics of ground sampling distance, like how do these things actually work? What contributes to a more accurate map? There's a lot of people I feel as if out there who want to get a very entry level drone and be able to produce high level results with it, or the technology that you're using isn't capable of providing the results that you're looking for. So it's understanding that and being willing to do what is necessary to be effective in the field that you want to be in.
That's great advice. I appreciate that. So we've talked about the skills and maybe a little bit about, areas you can work in. So what's the next step for somebody? What are some of the training and certification paths? We haven't talked yet about things like the Part 107. So, could one of you or both of you maybe just walk us through what are some of the next steps that a student might want to take if they wanted to get serious about this career pathway?
So ODOT has a great resource in the LTAP online resource. It's test documentations about how to pass the Part 107. From what I hear, other state DOTs have adopted our LTAP program. That's basically becoming the de facto test documentation for the Part 107. I always say the Part 107 is not hard. You can find every question online. So you put in the time, you can pass it pretty easily. It has mainly to do with airspace. It has nothing to do with how to fly a drone. So I guess step 2 would be to get your hands on a drone and figure out how to, just fly it.
And I think in connection with that, being able to, there's the Part 107 and then there's the trust certification. So even at the very minimum, if you're going to operate the drone, get the trust certification, because whether you're doing so commercially or for fun, you need to understand the rules and regulations of the air. So trust certification, which will put you in a good position to be able to take your Part 107, the Airman Knowledge Exam. And again, yeah, it's all about rules and regulations. It isn't, there are some mechanics of flight that are in there, but it's basically saying, do you know how to obey the rules and regulations of the air? And again, as you get flight experience, and there's even simulators, DJI has several simulators that you can use. So even if you don't have the drone, you can utilize simulators to go through the process of flying the drone. So there are other ways that can be done. And you can reach out to Drive Ohio about STEM training and get education about flight mechanics as well. Shameless self plug for you guys.
We appreciate it. No, and there's a lot, like you say, a lot of resources out there. And so if I'm hearing you right, you start with the trust. And if I'm getting my details right, I think you can be as young as 13 to get a trust certificate. Something like that.
13 sounds right. Yeah, 13, 14. But you have to be at least 16 to take the 107.
That's right. So you work your way up to the Part 107 license, and then, as you kind of said throughout this conversation, then you layer in this domain specific knowledge, whether you're leaning towards construction, transportation, agriculture, marketing, roof inspection, you name it, right? You keep adding these pieces to those base level certifications to kind of become a specialist in whatever, and a valuable teammate. I mean, this becomes like really I think a great skill that differentiates you in a job market. So seems like a great opportunity. Yeah.
There's also, I started my thermography certification. That's a big thing when you're getting into thermal data and what you can do with it. So they're pretty much, and that's why I say when you're picking out specialties and looking at, really learn what is needed for that industry and where that industry is going. So there are specific certifications that you can get by industry. So it's just learning what those are, because you can have a whole career in agriculture. You can have a whole career in oil and gas. You can, you don't have to branch out to do, a master of all trades. You can learn one thing really well and do it very well and make a good living.
That's great. So as we wrap up our discussion today, what's some advice you'd give to students and teachers out there that are interested in this field? I mean, what's any words of wisdom you'd like to share with our future drone pilots out there that we haven't already covered today?
I would, like I said, I would think of it as another tool that you can use that can or cannot be fun to do. It can be stressful sometimes. And I would also say that the higher education is starting to get into the drones more. It's a lot of community colleges are having drone programs that are geared more towards flying drones, but they get into the software and the maintenance of drones is something we haven't even talked about. There's the whole mechanics event when the flying cars do eventually get there, and they will. It might be a while, but they'll get there. The whole mechanic side of that will be a career into itself. And then larger universities like Ohio State are starting to get into the drone, incorporating drones more, I would say. And they don't have specific bachelors. That's not a thing yet. I tried to convince, it's easy. I mean, think of it as a tool and collecting data. How do you process and deal with the data instead of thinking of it as the end of? That's my recommendations.
That's great. I think you've identified a future webinar topic, drone maintenance. So we'll watch for that in the future. Yeah. Love it. Adrian, anything you wanted to add?
Piggybacking off of that, I'll say it's a tool, not a toy. Jamie was mentioning, in understanding, don't be just another girl or a guy with a drone. Understand, learn more about the industry. They're fun, they're fascinating, but they also have a tremendous potential to bring about data and be valued. And I think that's really what's going to help it grow, is to be, guys and girls that specialize and that understand how to bring that. Don't be afraid to be an advocate for drone programming, an advocate for how these things can help particular industries. Because I think what happens a lot in the field is they've seen somebody do something wrong with the drone, and that turns off a whole set of people to being able to utilize them for the future. But we need that integration between, the drone pilot and, the general working community, and how we can work together to make a, cleaner, safer, better future based on drone technology. So we need that, and we need advocates who do it the right way and give it a good name. That's
great. Well, we always like to wrap these episodes up with just a bold prediction for the future. So 10 years from now, what is some sort of new job or even a new technology that you think will be out there that maybe nobody's thinking about? And to be fair, I'll give my answer too, but I'll let whoever would like to take it first take a shot.
Drone taxi drivers.
There you go.
You might be getting your pizza by a drone in 10 years.
Yeah.
So however all of that works, there'll still be humans involved, I think. Somebody will need to do that job.
Love it.
I think drone technology, different types of applications for going beyond the traditional quadcopter or quad rotor drone. So I think you'll see the mechanics of drone flight be integrated into more things that we just aren't thinking about right now. But once it really catches on, and just oh, you'll see it over here, you'll see it over there, you'll see it. I think you'll see more mainstream. Not like everybody walks around with a personal drone assistant, but something to the magnitude of more widespread integration of it.
And to your earlier point, I think some of the students in our audience right now are the ones who are going to come up with those ideas, which is why this is so important. All right, I offered my prediction. I will say you'll have someone who is controlling drone air traffic, like a drone air traffic controller, someone who's man in the skies a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah. We
So-
might even have large drones doing things in closed spaces. People carrying size drones, maybe carrying cargo in enclosed areas, not flying over public houses or roads, but think of like large ports or something like that.
Yeah. Well, lots we could keep thinking about. I know we'll have more episodes like this coming soon, but I want to thank you both for joining us. And this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you later.
So yeah.